Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I am your host as always, Professor Prime. So, math and gaming, they are both two of my favorite things, and I could talk about either one of them literally all day. But if I did that, I'd get nothing done. So, as you can imagine, I do have to limit that. For now. Okay, so math and gaming. I want to talk about how math is used in gaming or how it could be used, and I want to talk about that in two major ways. The first one I want to talk about is, well, from a gamer's perspective, how is math used in gaming? And then I want to do it on a more meta level. So like, well, how might it be used in constructing that game? How might it be used in getting that game out there, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about it. So, um, when you are playing a game, it's true that yes, there are a lot of different genres, right? But some of the most popular ones tend to be action adventure games, and as you're playing those sort of games, oftentimes you're going throughout these different worlds and you're figuring out the mechanics of the world and the mechanics of your playable character, and you're problem solving, you're solving puzzles, you're getting out there, you're getting around, right? And I think one of the cool things is when you're figuring out those, like, sorry, if you're figuring out the mechanics of the world, you're knowing the rules. You start to look at how you can play with those rules, and you start to look at your character and how to get around. And there might be obstacles, there might be platforming involved, and you have to figure out, well, how do you move your character from here to there? You have to like measure that out. And whether you're doing that out loud or not, or on paper or not, you're doing math when you're doing that. So if I had like a character and I was like on a ledge and I had to get to another ledge, I have to like get a good idea of like the distance between the two ledges, and I also have to have a good idea how far my character can jump. And if there are items involved, I need to see the boost that the items give to my character. And I might not be writing out like, oh well, the ledge is 6 feet, but I can have a good idea I can have a good idea about how many feet it is from here to there, or how many meters, depending on how you're measuring things or where you're from. But the point is, you're doing math when you're doing that. You're making approximations in your mind, and you're doing that. And I think that's cool because at the end of the day, I think we're natural mathematicians, and one of the big things with math is like you're doing a lot of problem solving, so you're approaching that too in a way, and I think that's pretty cool. And so one of the cool things with math is they're hard skills that you pick up, like you're learning this vocabulary, you're learning this thing, you're learning that thing, you're figuring out how to solve equations, how to analyze the situation and all that, and solve the problem with a given situation. You're learning all these tactics and strategies and a whole bunch of other things, right? So those are more of the hard skills that are kind of cemented, like you're learning them through a curriculum or something, right? Now some of these like soft skills that you pick up are pretty cool, like, or that you enhance are pretty cool. Like, you might develop problem solving skills or get better problem solving skills. You might become a better communicator because I feel like you are communicating when you're doing math, so you might get better at getting some idea across. You might get better at logic and better at analyzing a situation. And with a lot of those things that I just mentioned, they make you a better gamer, because when you are gaming, one of the most rewarding parts of being a gamer is like when I turn on my console, usually the PS4 these days, but I turn on my console, I pop in a game, and I'm problem solving. I'm setting some goals, I'm getting to those goals, and I'm problem solving along the way, and I'm taking advantage of the world and doing that, and I think that's pretty cool. And I'm using my logic and I'm using my analysis skills. And so I think there's a lot of overlap there, and that's pretty awesome. And yeah, so those are some of the ways that I'm thinking like gaming is used in like oh sorry, math is used in gaming. Um, but there are some actual math games like that are directly math games. Like two come to mind because I grew up on them, so I'm gonna get nostalgic for a little bit. But here, let's talk about the first one. So the first one that comes to mind is Number Munchers. And that's pretty cool. Like at this point, you can probably find a free version of it out there. But the whole thing is kind of like a Pac-Man sort of scenario. There's a board, and you're playing as a frog, and that frog is eating numbers on each square on that board that pertain to the title of the level. So like if I have the multiples of two is the title, then it's eating all of the multiples of two, and you kind of have to do that in a set time limit. And I think there are some enemies like on in later levels, but it's been a while for me. But anyway, it was fun, and they had all sorts of things like they had multiples of two, multiples of three, things like that. They also had prime numbers, and that was pretty cool. And for the record, one isn't prime. If someone told you that, they lied to you, or they were misinformed. By definition of a prime number, it can't be that. Prime number is any number that is only divisible by itself in one, and the caveat being two distinct numbers. And I think like the distinct part gets left out. But I digress. So that's one of them, and that was pretty fun growing up. And another math game I can think about is Mega Math Blaster. Oh, it has been a while, but there, you're playing as an alien, and you're going around, you're blasting things and solving math problems along the way. It's been a long, long time since I played that, but that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I have to say about like math in gaming from the gamer perspective. Just a few things, and if you all think of other ways, feel free to share them. And then like on a more meta level, um, so when you're constructing a game world, you have to code, and there's a lot of math in coding, right? Um, you have to code that world up, and then you have to like also know the physics of that world, right? You have to construct that, and you have to have something that makes sense, right? You have to build it up, and there's a lot of math involved in that. And then in terms of getting the game out there, you know, you have the price of the game and your expectations for that game, and a lot of maths involved in that. And when a studio is making a game, or a team is making a game, they have a budget for that game that they have to like meet, right? Like either getting right on it or getting under it. Ideally not going over budget, and there's a lot of math in that too. And then there's like you, the player, like you gotta figure out, well, what do you want to spend your money on game wise, right? Like, because games are not cheap. It is not a cheap hobby to have, like, being a gamer. So you have to figure out, well, what do you want to do, and what looks like it'll give you more bang for your buck, right? And for me, that's very important. So I do some digging without like getting into spoilers for different games, and I know like especially as I get older, I want a game that's gonna last like hours. Like if you can get into like hundreds of hours territory, then I feel like that's good. And I have to like also check things with my budget. But like if I'm playing a game, right, like, and I'm paying $60 for a game, I don't want to pay like $60 for a game that will only last me 6 hours and then not have that much replay value. But if I can get a game like Near Automata, I can get hundreds of hours out of a glorious gamer's game, and I got more bang for my buck. So there's math in that too, and I think that's pretty cool. And then like there's kind of like math in terms of networking if you're playing with friends or you're playing with different groups. And so I think all of that is pretty amazing. And yeah, so and there's probably like a lot more I could say, but I don't want the video to go on too long. I just wanted to kind of give some different ideas to think about, because there's math in the games when you're playing them, whether you realize it or not. You're using math, and then there's like a lot of math that goes into constructing that game, constructing the world for that game, buying said game, and like how much you get out of that like experience. And so I think there's a lot of things to consider. And so I hope someone watched this video and got something out of it. And if you can think of other ways that math is related to gaming, feel free to share. I encourage it. I like those sort of discussions. So yeah, that being said, Professor Prime out.